Hello, friends, and welcome to Coaches Exploring Clarity. In this series, my colleagues Elaine Wright, Lynne Brannigan, and myself will be exploring Jamie Smart's second edition of Clarity. Let's get started. Yeah. So why don't we jump right in?
Jump in.
Since you mentioned the preface, was there anything in particular in the preface that jumped out at you or caught your attention?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to go. I am on page 1, as it happens, in the introduction, and the first thing I used my, what do we call this again? Highlighter pen. Jeez, that was a menopausal moment. The first thing I highlighted was clarity is your mind's natural state. And when I read that, I had an image of little kids running around. That was just the first thing that came to mind. And when you just said a moment ago about your frequency, I think I probably read that again just after I'd been home in Scotland, and I've had loads of little kids running around and the joy of that. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's what it looks. That's what we all looked like when we got here. So it's got to be still there.
It's funny. That's the I highlighted that as well.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, it's like, I know there's a few quotes and things before that, but it's essentially the first real sentence of the book. And it's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, but it's like there's so much freedom and power in that 6 words, right? Like the idea, because it, to me, implied in the fact that it's our natural state is like, this is not something that you have to go out and get or do to achieve, or like, it's the fact that it's natural and we already have it within us. To me, there's there's so much hopefulness in that idea, right? And I think when I've been working with Jamie and going into coaching with people, it's like that certainty that this is already there in the person that you're coaching, and you can count on that.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the kind of thing, like, it's because it's so early in the book and it's like the first line, I would have read it not even given it a second thought. So that's kind of what I've taken away from just that one sentence. Like, just if you just read this book,
I think I would just add it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you read this book and all you took away from it was that clarity was your natural state, that would be huge for most people.
Yep.
Go ahead, Lynn. You were going to say something.
The only thing that I was going to add was it cannot be taken away from us. It cannot, not possible. And that's just, it is so freeing to think that it's just ours. It's there. It's intrinsic. It's in. We could spend an hour unpacking those 6 words.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and indeed, I underlined on that page. That's the only thing I did underline. And then sort of had a look at it and thought, well, that's quite incredible, really, because it's such a simple sentence. And on the one hand, there's a sort of obviousness to it, like that it could indeed be overlooked. Like, well, yeah. But then what struck me was, well, how interesting that such a simple sentence that looks seemingly almost innocuous, let's say, like, because for starters, I guess most of the human beings on the planet don't even consider, they just don't even consider those words. Like, we don't go around asking ourselves, what is our mind's natural state? Oh, it's clarity, question answer. But we do go around asking ourselves a hell of a lot of other questions that don't really lead to anywhere. So just the very fact that it's stated, I think, in itself it's almost outrageous if you think about it, as I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the word I'd add on to outrageous is outrageously simple.
Yes,
Mm.
yes. Or simply outrageous.
Yeah, well,
That's
there
what
you
you-
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Anything else from the introduction that jumps out?
It again, just generally, just in such, how many pages are the introduction? 6. Okay, so nine pages, let's say, more or less.
Mm.
A whole series of adjectives that, as I look now at them again, they're again, as they're in their word form, written black and white, they're actually all words that are, in some way, resonate with me at a very deep level, but in a linguistic kind of sense, in my day-to-day doings, I don't even consider them. They're just not in my prayer book on a day-to-day thing. But as I read them, and I'm going like, oh, like the very word resilience has reappeared. Now 3 years has just reappeared into my vocabulary. And in the same way as it appears, considerations about it appear, and then the effects of it appear, and then the other things appear that seem somehow connected just to that word, and it seems to I'm just taking one word, but it's for many words he's used. So thinking, feeling, perceiving, natural capacity, uncertainty, complexity, creativity, intuition, confidence, and even leadership. Sort of like I'm seeing it all over the place now. Whether it applies to me, doesn't apply to me, whether I do something, I don't know, but I'm just like, I guess it points to sort of raising awareness. And that's something that struck me in the introduction, like, whoa, all of this. Yeah.
Well, I love that that first sentence we talked about, and then you start expanding, like, okay, well, what does clarity mean? Well, it means things like resilience and creativity and leadership, and those two are innate capacities that we have. Like, not only is clarity our natural state, but those capacities, we have a natural capacity for those things, which I think is huge. And I think what's coming to mind when I think about resilience is just like what the world has been through in the last 2.5, 3 years with the pandemic. Like that's a kind of a case study of resiliency, both because of things that things like viruses and things do to us, but the things that we do to ourselves as a society. And I've seen my kids who are high school age bounce back from homeschooling to going back to school to all the constraints and no exams, having exams, and it's like watching, like, just the amazement of the resiliency of people to overcome obstacles and things that get thrown in their way, and that's available to everybody.
So that kind of brings me, oh wow, it just brings me right back to the why. Why is it important to talk about it? Because it isn't part of daily language. We're not walking around the home going, do you have clarity today?
Yes.
I've got enough reasons. I have enough reasons for my husband to throw me out. I'm not adding that one. Please. So for, to somehow, I wonder if we, to bring it when we're with people, or when Elaine calls other people normal people. When you're chatting, she calls other people normal people, not as, the normal people.
Yeah.
That's what she said yesterday. If normal people are in W. Smith and see that book, and I'm like, what are we?
Yeah.
Not the normal people. Yeah, so it's just, that's the back to the why is it important? Why is it important to recognize that we have it? Because if we have that, all that other stuff is just there in the other layers. It's just there available to us. We lose sight of it. We didn't notice. Nobody told us. We forgot. It's very cool, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think of how many times I've told myself or people in my family and so on say like the notion, some flavor of I can't handle this. And when you point to innate resilience, it's like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also actually, as you're saying it, you're actually doing it. The moment you said you've said I can't handle this, you actually are handling it while you're saying it because you're still here.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. I did highlight one more sentence where he says, as you start to deepen your understanding of the principles behind clarity, you're going to reconnect with your mind's natural self-clearing function. So again, like that whole notion of deepening, like the whole reason I want to do this is just to continue to deepen my understanding. It's kind of like, I don't know, I think of mining for gold. It's, I just, another 10 feet deeper, there's going to be so much more gold down there.
The nuggets are there.
Yeah. I also like in this introduction, it's the first time he introduces his clarity equation. Clarity equals capacity minus contamination.
I love that.
Because if you think about it, this just occurred to me last night when I was looking at it, but if you said, like, if contamination is 0, or you remove that part of the equation, then it's just clarity equals capacity. Like, it's, which means what we were just pointing to, like, we all have the capacity for all these things. If it wasn't for this contamination piece, we'd be in total clarity all the time.
Or whatever that capacity entails, it can be learned. Because it just sort of goes back down to it kind of leaves a skill set, if you like, nothing more. And it knocks the idea of having some sort of motivation towards action from it, because it's there. So okay, we can breathe, we can do that. I've got a capacity to do that, and I know it. Sure as hell, if I'm as anxious as anything, my actual capacity, which is natural and inborn, is actually inhibited. On the other side, I don't know how to make $1 million in this next year to come. Well, that's just a skill set. It's some skill around selling some product or something, or doing whatever it is you have to do. But it sort of it actually removes anything from everything. But not only things, it removes also a sense or perhaps a misunderstanding of the word motivation. I need to get my motivation up today, because otherwise, I won't have the capacity to do something.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're talking to there is like the subtractive psychology component of it, for sure.
Yeah. And interesting, after that, the only thing I highlighted on page 5, which comes after the equation, is the primary condition needed is an absence, and then there's a few more words, an absence of external interference, and that's the contamination. So the primary condition needed is this absence of external interference. It's the noise, it's everything that gets in the way, it's our clutter. Yeah, actually, when I was thinking about clarity earlier, I sat outside for 10 minutes and I was thinking about clarity. And I was thinking about my brain versus my closet, where all my socks and everything are. Every morning I go for a walk, or I go exercise somewhere. And somehow I haven't got a handle on where my socks are. And it takes me ages to find the pair of socks that I actually want. And I'm like, every day I say, I'll clear it out. And I do it sometimes. I clear the clutter of this space. And it makes the next morning so much easier because I go and I get the pair of socks and I put my socks on, I put my shoes on, and I leave the house. So it's something about that. It's something, I don't know why I drew a comparison between those, but that's what I saw. And like, it's back to simplicity again. It just goes back to simplicity. It's like, you know, without all the clutter and the external, however Jimmy said, that interference, of which we have a lot, things just seem more clearer, obviously, and simpler. They just seem simpler.
Yeah. And I also saw another thing on page 5, the top of page 5, where the move from a manufacturing economy to a knowledge economy. Now I underlined that as, and then I did a silly thing because I've underlined everything in pencil, but I should have underlined things that I know what I'm talking about, and then underlined with another color, perhaps things that I don't know what I'm talking about. So this should have been underlined with the things I don't understand, or rather, I underlined it because it jumped out at me and I don't know why. And as I was reading through, which I mean, maybe as we get there, we need to go into the second chapter to see where I made some kind of connection and understanding of those very words. You know, so what's that got to do with it? This was what I was thinking. Oh, it jumps out at me, but like, because I don't really get why is he saying the move from, you know, why is he talking about that fairly specific period of time? And then so what came to mind were things like, you know, Jamie's talked about paradigm shifts and this kind of thing, but I didn't really get it. So while we're on page 5, and because I'll mention it again when we get to chapter 3, what sort of the useful bit of information that came from me while I was doing this was sometimes you definitely do need to read a few things a few more times because there's always more to see and understand. But I guess, okay, big message. The understanding will come if you allow it to. That's what I got from underlining that bit. So I didn't see it, and I didn't even really try too much to see it. I just carried on looking for more things. And I guess that kind of knowing was already inside of me, and it's the knowing that Jamie's talking about. It's the inner wisdom. Like it's okay, because if I'm saying it's okay to me, it implies that there's actually, my head's pretty clear. At this point in reading, my head is pretty clear, and it's okay for me not to get that because I have various options and I can just carry on regardless, which is kind of carrying on regardless is kind of a natural resilience. You know, I don't need to go there. It's okay. It's okay. It really is okay. And then I'll connect it up, something about that as we get into the third chapter.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were describing there is like, I don't know, the way my whole life I've read is like you read something and say there's a like this, you don't understand what this means or can't relate to it, or if I've seen words that I don't really know what the word is, but you can see the context that they're using the word in, you can kind of figure it out. But I've always been kind of like, I don't really get that bit. Oh well, carry on and just keep moving on. But I love this process of now going back and you know, like you said, like you get to chapter 3 and then all of a sudden you have an insight about something that then explains what you saw, what you didn't understand earlier, and you can kind of go back to it. And I think that's, you know, we've already pointed to that in terms of the more times you go through this, the different things you're going to see it and hear and understand, because your understanding will be different.
Yeah.
Cool.
Also, I think it just in general terms, the understanding. When I read that, I see something. I don't know if I understand it as it is intended, but I see what I see from it. I have no idea if I see it as it's intended, to be honest. I kind of think, you know, for the moment it doesn't matter, but we're all going to see it in our own way. It's it's going to say what it says, or it's not going to say much, or whatever.
Yeah.
I wasn't too
Yeah.
concerned about it.
On page 8, I highlighted, until you realize you've been caught in a trap, you're very unlikely to get out of it. And I thought, when you're talking about, when the normal people see this book on the shelf, like they don't even know they're in a trap or in a misunderstanding.
No.
So I think that awakening and realization of what's going on, and that there's a way out. And again, points back to the hopefulness of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the hopefulness. Yeah. Let's point people to the hopefulness.
Yeah, isn't it just? And then kind of the rather sad. It's not sad. I don't know what the word is, but it's sort of like a bit of an anticlimax at the end of that sentence. But once you know about the trap and you can see how it works, well, the escape is pretty straightforward. Like, oh, yeah. So like, it's like, oh God, all this stuff. Oh, and then it's just really simple. It's almost, and I actually like the fact that Jamie writes that. It's not, well, the escape is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh, normal stuff. You can just kind of get on with living.
Yeah. I've just realized I'm going this weekend to an escape room with my sister and my wife and our kids, because for her birthday, she wanted to do this escape room thing. So I'm going to use this as an experiment to see like how can I use clarity to see the trap for what it is and make the escape very straightforward.
Oh, brilliant. Look forward to hearing about that. One of the phrases, I've been listening to Sam's podcast, Greg, from the weekend with Ellie. It's brilliant if you haven't listened.
Yeah, I've listened to a few of them. Yeah.
Oh man, I just think they're highly entertaining. And it's not, he hasn't created this. I forget where he got it, but he talks about being inside the jar, and all you can see inside the jar is the back of the label. You don't really know, you don't know what you are inside that jar until you can read the outside of the label. And that just, it makes me giggle every time. So I'm like, oh man, how true is that? I mean, how true is it? And it's the same thing. If you're in the trap, you don't know you're in the trap until it's like the door opens and you're going, oh God, it was that easy. It was marmalade. It wasn't olive oil. I don't know. It's just so funny that it's back to you don't know what you don't know as well. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's funny. That's the only thing on the page I highlighted. Around. Well, I highlighted the Q&A and then a little bit underneath. Yeah.
That was the only thing I highlighted as well there.
Yeah. And I thought at the end of each of these sections, Jamie has his thought experiment. And I don't know about your guys' experience, but like when I'm going to give myself like a 5 out of 10. Like as I've read through the book and I read the thought experiment, I think to myself, I'll do that later.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't actually do it. Like sometimes I've done it, and same with the QR codes and the extra content that is available through the book. Some of them I've gone and either it's an article or a video and watched it or read it, and other ones I've just said I'll go back to that. So I'm hoping as I go through this for this exercise, I'll do all those things. But I thought we could spend a few moments on the thought experiment. So for this introduction, it's we each experience greater clarity from time to time. As you look back now, what are some of the more memorable occasions when you found yourself experiencing unexpected increase in clarity?
And I struggle here, to have a direct answer to a direct question, because my answer right now is I haven't got a clue, Greg. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, I've got one off the top of my head.
What I do know is many, but I can't. I don't know where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. I just haven't got a clue. I had some very in unexpected increase in clarity just off the call with Emma. So there's one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've got a bunch top of mind just because part of this course I've been building, I've been documenting different insights and moments and things I've had throughout my life. But the one that's coming to mind right now is when I was in university, my friends and I, we would cram for exams, like study like fiends right up until the very last minute, and then go in and try to write these exams with our heads swirling with, months of information and thousands of pages of information in our minds. And at some point, I had there's the only way I can describe it now is an insight that wasn't a great strategy. And so what I started doing is at about 45 minutes or an hour before the start time of the exam, I would pack up my books and tell all my friends, okay, if I don't know it now, I'm not going to know it. And I'd leave them. They'd all still be sitting there cramming. And I would go put my, this is back in the early 90s. So I'd have my Sony Walkman.
Did you have a Walkman?
Yeah. My Sony Walkman, the yellow one that was watertight or whatever. And I'd put on a tape and I'd go for a walk around campus and just listen to, I think the cassette I had at the time was Pearl Jam 10. And I just walk around campus and listen to rock music and totally clear my mind. And then I'd go, it was time for the exam. I'd show up and I went into those exams in clarity. I wasn't thinking about all the stuff I didn't know. I wasn't thinking about the stuff I did know. I just had kind of faith that whatever I'd put into my brain up to that point, I'd be able to recall it when I need it. And I wasn't exactly like, on a dean's list or anything, but my marks, when I started doing that, I did way better on my exams than I had done previously when I was going in there with a busy mind. So that's one real life example I can think of for myself of finding clarity.
I'm thinking of stuff and I'm thinking, am I getting confused between insight and realization? So let me throw this past you and see what you make of this. Because what comes up for me, and it literally just came up when you mentioned high school, and I thought, I don't know how old I was, but maybe I was like 15 or something when I had a moment of, I'm not going to live here. When I was growing up in Scotland, I had this, I can remember thinking, I'm not going to live here when I grow up, type of thing. I don't know if that's an insight or a realization. And then the second one was when I first came across coaching. And I'm like, I have to do that. I don't even know what that is. What is she doing? I need to do that. That cool thing that person's doing, I need to do that. So are those insights or realizations, would you say? Sorry for swearing.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's semantics a little bit, the wording.
Yeah.
I like to think of it as insight and realization. I don't know. And I don't think it really matters what you label it or what column you put it in. It's a fresh new idea that came from somewhere other than your intellect is basically what that is.
Well, I've just had an insight and realization. I guess it's rather confirmation that of knowing that this is how I work, that in front of a question, like quite simply written in a book, a question, I usually don't have any answers whatsoever at all. And that's been the whole story of my life, especially at school, obviously so disastrous results for whatever reason. So that's when I've just had that now. And it's also, of course, the realization is that it's actually okay not to have an answer, for whatever reason. But I guess the greatest insight and realization that I probably had was while I wasn't realizing that I was having an insight and a realization. And that was when I just, for whatever reason, or for no reason, I upped and left and ran away from home to Italy. The why I did it, suddenly became very, very clear. And there was no contamination in the equation, which is why I did it. But I wasn't aware at the time, I can see it now, that I was actually having an insight and a realization.
Yeah. I think that's a great distinction, because I don't think we don't know that that's what's happening until after the fact when we look back on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if we go back to normal people, whilst we're talking about them, I'm thinking of a specific example that something that one of my clients shared with me last week in an email. She doesn't realize that she was sharing something with me and was like, isn't that cool? She didn't write to me and say, look, I've had this insight. She just went, I decided I was doing that thing. I decided it wasn't right for me. I stopped. I looked at it and I saw it and I stopped, and I wouldn't have done that before. She is not articulating, I'm having an insight, I'm having a realization. She just went, that's not right for me now.
Yeah.
And that's just so cool. So that's us going, that's how the normal people say it.
Yeah. And it's happening all the time.
It's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Falling off a log, it's happening all the time.
Yeah. I like that, then, falling off the log. Yeah.
Like falling off a log.
Yeah.
It's as easy as that, like falling off a log.
Yeah.
Jamie needs to get that in version 3.
Yes.
Does that seem like a natural place for us to pause?
Yeah, I think we can leave that there for now, and next time we'll pick up on an actual real chapter 1.
Yeah. But great.
But it seemed, when you said we'd start with chapter 1, I spent so much time. I've literally read that opening bit 4 times because it seemed to me there was so much in there. So yeah, cool.
Great.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you.